The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. First, the group cannot go further without acknowledging the unfortunate death of comedian, actor, and genius Robin Williams. The group has chosen a happy picture to go with this tribute because although sometimes Williams movies made us sad, they also made us happy as well. As can be said about the best of art. He was an artist and his work will be remembered. He will be sorely missed. Robin Williams, dead at 63. We'd like to welcome our panelists, including Andreas Antonopoulos, author of Mastering Bitcoin.
Hey, everyone.
Blake Anderson from Facebook.com/GotBlake.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Will Pangman from Topeki.
Hi, everyone.
Christoph Atlas from Anonymous Bitcoin Book.
Thanks for having me top off the Sausage Fest.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from Mad Bitcoins, the leader of this Sausage Fest. Issue 1, Bitcoin price, suffering, margin pains. Bitcoin prices have been down in the dumps lately, falling from a relatively stable 600 to a dismal 500. Are margin calls the reason for this decline? Did so many traders buy Bitcoin on a margin only to be forced to sell in huge tranches? Andreas Antonopoulos.
No. There's a bunch of people selling. So there was a big exodus of a whole bunch of money from the Ethereum Ether sale. And there's all kinds of cyclical movements in this currency. Remember, even the tiniest of news can throw things up in disarray because there's not enough liquidity in this market yet. It's tiny, and it gets pushed around very easily. I always look at these as opportunities to buy that, maybe I'm biased, but I believe the long-term future for Bitcoin is brighter than it was 6 months ago and keeps getting brighter by the day. Last time we had a bit of a drop in prices, I used the opportunity to buy at 375 and 380, if I'm not mistaken. So, I'm going to use this opportunity to buy a bit more and see if I can gain. I mean, my strategy has always been very simple. I buy on Mondays, and that dollar cost averaging strategy will give you a smoothing out of the volatility and a good average price, no matter how much the price gets thrown around. If you just keep to a consistent plan, maybe put a small amount of money aside every week, something you can spare, quit a bad habit, stop smoking, drink one beer less, go out to one less movie, have one less meal eating out every week, and you can afford to put $10, $20, maybe $30 into Bitcoin a week, and you've got a strategy. And you keep doing that for a year, you'd be amazed how far ahead of the curve you're going to get by the end of the year. I think that's always the best approach. Don't be a day trader. Don't be a fool. Don't start panicking. Don't try to time the market. You will get burned. Just put whatever you have you can spare, a bit of investment here and there every week. Regular as clockwork. Buy on a Monday, buy on a Wednesday, pick a day, and just keep it consistent.
Blake Anderson.
I agree a lot with what Andreas said. A dollar cost averaging strategy, if you've ever heard of that, means basically just buying a regular set amount at a regular interval. The price is really, really high at that time, you maybe buy a little bit less. The price is really low, you buy a little bit more, and if it's an average amount of price versus buy, you just buy a normal amount. And if you have a dollar cost averaging approach to getting into Bitcoin, the volatility is a lot less impactful. But I mean, I'm not concerned about this. I think that merchant adoption is strong, and that a little bit of a dip in the price means that it's not a bubble, that people are spending Bitcoin as the merchant adoption increases in its ability to interface with the liquidity of Bitcoin. More and more people are able to spend it, the price goes down, people invest and it goes up, and this is regular healthy market activity for something that's not a bubble. So I see it as a net good signs of long-term growth.
Will Pangman.
Yeah, I think at least on one exchange, this was the issue. It's a high.
And then he was gone.
And he's gone.
The NSA is like, hey, they're not hearing this.
Guess we'll move on to Christoph, see if Will comes back as soon as we
Oh,
talk.
he's back.
Are you back,
He's
Will?
back.
There he is. Give it another try, Will.
All right, sure, guys. Yeah, so I think at least on one exchange, Bitfinex, Bitfinex, that's what happened with the the margin call thing. There was a cascading margin call there. Price got down especially low on that exchange. But other than that, I mean that's a high volume exchange. That's one of the exchanges that has the most liquidities, and there might be some long squeezing going on too with that, short squeezing. I mean, who knows? It's anybody's guess. If we're watching price and we have to talk about the price, then I think it's interesting to talk about what might be affecting this technologically speaking. Like, I know Bitfinex did a massive overhaul on their trading engine to prevent these kinds of things if it was to happen again in the time between the winter crash, if you will, and now. So that system was tested, and maybe we'll hear some interesting feedback on what they experienced with that, and other exchanges can improve. I'm more interested in some of these other projects that are working on bringing liquidity to the Bitcoin marketplace, whether they have to do with fiat and interfacing with fiat or backing an altcoin with fiat, or not at all. No intersection with the legacy system whatsoever. So I like those projects a lot, and we'll continue to see these exchanges strengthen up. And the suspicion that there's not enough adoption to keep up with the 3,600 or so Bitcoins produced per day is an interesting one too. But I kind of rejected that. I do think there's been somewhat of a decrease in the acceleration of adoption, but not stagnant.
Christoph, Atlas.
Yeah, if you want a good trading strategy, I think the buy and hold thing using dollar cost averaging is quite good. On the other side of the coin, if you're someone that makes a lot of his income through Bitcoin, which I now do, my empirical evidence and advice of recent experience would be that don't try to time the market on that side either. Don't try to wait a little bit longer to sell your Bitcoin so you can pay off your credit card bill or whatever. Like every time I do that, I just end up screwing myself over, because I can always be like, oh, if I just wait a little bit longer, then I'm really going to cash in on these Bitcoins, and then I'll get like a little bit more out of them, and it just doesn't work out for me. So my advice would be just you sell off as you need to on a kind of an averaging basis, and that's probably the way to go. The price is always interesting, right? Because for people that love Bitcoin, they can always come up with a way that the price going down or up is fantastic news. And the people that hate Bitcoin, they can always come up with an explanation of why it's terrible news for Bitcoin, right? On the hater end, well, let's talk about the lover end first, right? Like when the price goes down, we're like, oh, it's a buying opportunity, and when the price goes up, we're like, to the moon, right? And then on the hater side, it's like, the price goes down, they're like, oh, it just shows the non-viability of Bitcoin. We're like, but it means that there's people spending their Bitcoin at merchants, and they're like, no, it doesn't matter. And then when the price goes up, it's like, it's because it's in a deflationary spiral. They're hoarding. They're never going to let go of their Bitcoins. It's too expensive, and no one's going to spend their Bitcoins at these levels because they're just going to keep holding on to it. It's going to go on forever. So I think one of the things that really hurts us in these moments is the degree to which journalists completely do not understand economics. I mean, they're completely retarded, and even worse, they think that they do understand economics, and they have all these, economagicians that they consider to be experts that they go to for their expert opinion, and they're like, oh, well, I've done my due diligence going to, the local finance school to Professor Bitcoin for his insight on the crypto economy. So I think the lack of the degree of ignorance in finances and economics and all this kind of stuff really hurts us. Reporting does have a significant impact on pricing and how the market is perceiving the forward value and all this stuff. And I'm sure that there are these exaggerative effects through margin calls and all that kind of stuff. And I look forward to the day when things are a bit more stable and the ability to short Bitcoin is going to have more of an evening effect on the price rather than these exaggerative effects.
Exit question. Force prediction. Price of Bitcoin next week. Andreas.
1 Bitcoin will be worth 1 Bitcoin.
Blake.
Predicting price for next week, I would have to look through the ask bid ratios and stuff like that for various markets to really try to make a prediction, but I don't know if that would be worth the time to do it, because I don't think that even if I did it properly, it would really be able to predict it. So I'm going to go with Andreas' answer. 1 Bitcoin will be worth 1 Bitcoin.
Will.
501.
Christoph.
Markets are highly chaotic systems, therefore it's impossible to predict the price. But since I'm being forced to do so, I've prepared for this. I've pulled up a random number generator. I'm going to generate a random integer between 420 and 600. Let's go. $524.00.
Christoph is closest. 550 is correct.
I need to borrow your DeLorean.
Issue 2. Hackers steal 1.6 million in NXT from BTER exchange. And unlike Vericoin, BTER is not asking the developers to roll back the coin. They claim that they will be able to catch the hacker themselves. Blake Anderson, your thoughts?
I hope that they can catch the people that did it, and it works as like a giant lesson where people can learn what to do and what not to do and how to try to solve problems without going back and being like, we're going to go redo all the code and start over and reboot and stuff. Because the more that that happens, I mean, I don't know if we should get super comfortable being like, we're going to get a whole bunch of boondoggles and redos and then have life be like that. So I don't know if anybody wants stuff to go in that direction. So I think that, what happened wasn't the best, but the way that they're trying to go about fixing it without, a big kind of backtrack is at least commendable.
Will Pangman.
Yeah, so from my reading of what happened here, it sounds like BTER is blaming the theft on themselves, and that's due to the fact that they did not have two-factor authentication enabled on their server, even though they had it enabled on several other places of vulnerable import. They did not have it at the actual source of all subsequent vulnerabilities. So I'm not trying to rub salt in their wound. I really just want to hammer home so much the importance of making the big Saturday afternoon leap into resetting your passwords with long randomly generated passwords, use a key manager, and enable two-factor authentication on every Bitcoin anything you've got, and the email account that's tied to that, please.
Very true. If they get the email, they get everything. And this happens over and over again, so don't be a statistic. Christoph.
Yeah, since I'm sort of a privacy wonk, I have kind of ambivalent feelings about this. On one hand, it's sad to see some hacker, running off with people's funds. On the other hand, every time they're able to successfully catch one of these people, it makes me sad because I want cryptocurrencies to be as private as possible when the people who have control over the funds want them to be private. I do think that perhaps in the next few years what we will start to see is some companies start up around being able to set up sting operations for this type of thing, because even if you work very hard to make a cryptocurrency private, when there's that much money involved, millions of dollars, and there's a relatively small number of parties, the ability to target individuals in any given system as opposed to de-anonymizing the entire system, that's very difficult to defend against. So I think that you could, for a couple $100,000, form a team of people that would be able to hunt down the individual that stole the coin successfully. I just don't think we really have anything out there right now, but it's a service that could be provided for sure. So I hope that will be one of the solutions that people look towards in the future.
I pity the fool. Andreas Antonopoulos.
Hey, I love the Will's suggestion of using two-factor authentication, but we're talking here about $1.7 million in NXT coins held in a hot wallet in an exchange. How many times do we have to learn the lesson that cryptocurrencies stored with somebody else having control over the keys, in this case the exchange, I'm going to call them BTER. I think that's an apt name for them, pronunciation of their name right now. So BTER kept a hot wallet with $1.7 million worth of a cryptocurrency, and they're surprised that it's gone. I mean, that's just monumentally stupid. This is Gox. This is the same story all over again. If you have coins in your own wallet where you control the keys, if you control the keys, it's a wallet. If you don't control the keys, it's a bank. And banks get robbed, and banks have the bankers run away with the money. And that's the story we should be learning from this. As for the idea that the solution to a theft is to try to roll back the consensus system of the currency and destroy the trust in the accuracy of transactions in the currency itself. Now, who would do something so monumentally stupid as to take a single bank theft or single bank disaster and then try to either massively inflate the monetary policy or bail out the bank and undo history and try essentially wreck the entire economy and the entire currency just to cover up for a mistake? I mean, nobody's that stupid. Nobody makes mistake, well, except for the Fed, but nobody's that stupid to make that mistake. So the lesson we should remember here is don't destroy the entire currency and the economy just because of one theft, and focus on the real reason this theft happened. It's not because you didn't secure things adequately. It's because you gave control of the keys to somebody else. And once you do that, there is no security in the world that's going to protect you from a theft. If you put $1.7 million on a hot wallet on a single server, it will get stolen. There's no two-factor authentication solution to that. It's just stupid you put it there in the first place. There's no rolling back from that mistake. Just let those thieves sell it back to honest owners, so at least you don't mess up the proof of stake system of the entire currency. I don't even think about rolling back. Rolling back destroys the confidence in the currency, and no one would be that stupid, except for the Fed.
The other thing too is Next has its own distributed exchange, like natively. So why is a centralized exchange the solution for trading this coin? Just to echo Andreas's point about trusting the third party with your private keys.
That's a very good question, Will, and it's a very good question, Andreas. Exit question: will BTER find the hacker? Very yes or very no? Blake Anderson.
It depends on the amount of money they spend tracking and the strategy by which they try to go about the coins. If they have an effective budget and strategy and plan, then yes, and if not, no.
Will Pangman.
I don't know if they can or not or won't, but I hope they don't for the reasons Andreas articulated. This is something that I guess I shouldn't say I hope they don't, but I think the lesson to learn is the one Andreas articulated, and that's the takeaway, not rolling back the coin or trying to reconstitute everybody somehow after the fact. This is like, it's time to stop playing around with these businesses.
Christoph Atlas.
Yeah, if I had to guess, I would say probably not. And I wanted to add one other little note, which is, I guess the most recent other large-scale exchange theft that I'm aware of was the Vericoin. It's interesting to me that these last two big thefts have happened with proof of staking coins as opposed to proof of work ones, where there is this incentive. If you're not, some coins have the capability of keeping the coins online just briefly or in some kind of weird pseudo cold storage solution that I don't fully understand, and you can still get your staking dividends, but a lot of them, they don't even have that capability. And for the ones that do, lots of people don't really know actually how to make that happen. So you have all these people that are leaving their coins online, thinking that they're going to make it big with their dividends, and ultimately what that means is that just the principle of the investment gets taken instead of getting these dividend payouts. So I think that proof of stake coins have something to prove in this arena, that they actually can successfully secure their critical ecosystems.
Andreas.
Doesn't NXT have contracts and multisig and next generation
Bitcoin
capabilities? Right, and here's the simple reality of practical and pragmatic security. The security doesn't work until you use it. The system won't protect you unless you turn it on. And even in Bitcoin now, multi-sig technology is something that is becoming very widely used. In fact, interestingly enough, the recent Ether sale on Ethereum now constitutes the largest multi-sig holding in the Bitcoin space. Why the hell was that money not in some kind of next generation secured contract or multi-signature address? Because people continue to make the same mistake, and they're not going to have technology save them from their own mistakes. They probably won't find who stole the money, and I hope that they focus instead on making sure they protect the rest of the money, which is just as vulnerable as the money that was just stolen, and we have no indication that the security practices have changed. Maybe they turned on two-factor authentication. Still doesn't mean they control the keys.
Yeah,
I
I'd love to
agree.
see some people come out with some standards and practices for this is how you do shit when you have an exchange, even for the altcoin ones, even for the ones that are not doing fiat to Bitcoin, and start, having some auditing agencies, some kind of consumer reports, seal of approval, whatever it is that we need, so that these exchanges can come under the guidelines of what's reasonable. Because right now, just customers have no clue about what the hell they're doing to secure funds, and it's only exposed when the funds go bye-bye.
It would be nice to see the exchanges work together on this document like an association, because if one exchange gets hacked, it really is bad for the other exchanges. The industry as a whole looks bad. And if they had an association, we could say at least it wasn't the association that got hacked.
Well, yeah, this is what regulation is supposed to be. Regulation is supposed to be policies and practices that businesses agree upon to keep business regular and to keep people safe. We've had this conflation of law and regulation now, so we think that like laws have to come in and then try to somehow be something that is not representing a protection of negative rights, but is going to go actively modify markets to do things. I mean, I think that this would be a prime example of where it would be good to have regulation that all these exchanges are working on together, instead of Lawsky having this big nightmare circus with everyone focused on him with his pants down, really causing, a lot of non-progress in this effort.
Unfortunately, Andreas Antonopoulos has to leave, but we're on to Issue 3. Issue 3, Albertson stores hacked for credit card data. Yet another chain has been hacked for their credit card data, joining a list that includes Target, P.F. Chang's, Goodwill, the Chicago Yacht Club. It's about time we had some Yacht Club reporting on the show. Neiman Marcus, Shaw's, Star Market, and Super Value. Some of those might be the same company. Should Albertsons roll back the credit card chain or attempt to catch the hacker? Why do companies keep using insecure credit cards, criminally and unnecessarily exposing their customers' data? Will Pangman.
Well, they're wedded to these old systems of trust that people seem to think are still working just fine. It's just fine. Leave it alone. It's
If it ain't
I have a
broken,
little bit
don't
of
fix it.
Right, yeah. I have some consternation about some of this Luddite mentality, especially in the payments world. You read news articles about Visa talking about how they're coming out with these kinds of innovations and stuff like that, and then you read testimonials of their former employees and executives and mid-managers, and they talk about how Visa's a dinosaur and it's just stagnant and not innovating, right? So this is why this time has come with these new technologies. Now, again, this is the biggest value proposition probably for merchants, for all merchants, because I think the biggest value proposition for low margin merchants or mom and pop brick and mortar stores is the credit card fees. But the fraud protection is what's the big value for the bigger enterprises and stuff. And this is a huge infrastructure. Disrupting that is going to mean jobs are going to evaporate, and that's a good thing. I want to just highlight, I don't think a lot of the people working on these dinosaur technologies, even though they're taking home their reliable paycheck that they're comfortable with, this is really what I want to get at. It's about seeing risk in the wrong way. I think a lot of the old guard, if you will, sees Bitcoin as high risk and the current system as low risk, because everything about regulating and torquing the legacy system is about reducing risk. That's the reason they do everything policy-wise, pretty much. And what is the risk?
Like
and are they actually
management? Like they say they're going to just be like, we're going to manage our risk because we're all doing a shitty thing that's dumb together. But once we're all in the same boiling pot together, then we'll have the risk management of, well, we're all going to have to get out together, and we'll just get onto that bandwagon when that starts too. So it's not true risk management. I've never thought of that before. I'm sorry to jump in, but that was a really good point.
It's okay. This is something that's good. That's something I've been thinking a lot about. Wanted to talk with you specifically about, Blake. But just to carry on the point, it's one thing to consider like stagnation and lack of progress, or like calcification of an institution. It's one thing to call that low risk. It's another thing to call adventure, innovation, and outside box thinking, progress. It's to call that high risk. If anything, that would be the more manageable risk, even if it's higher. To manage outcomes than staying still and trying to keep everything still and keep it inside its borders and keep it from growing and developing. That would be like much higher risk, requiring ever increasing overheads to maintain. So this is why it's interesting to think about these fraud protection schemes that the legacy payments world is wedded to. And what Bitcoin provides, which is full automation and protection, where baked into the native system, where these other systems just don't have it, and they require tons of manpower to do it poorly.
Christoph, Atlas.
Yeah, so this whole story reminds me of something that I experienced maybe a year or two ago. I got an email from my credit card company, and they were like, there were some charges on your account that seemed a little, are these yours? Are you sure that these are yours? And I'll take a look at them, and it's like a couple different sex toy stores online and latincupid.com and
I was going to joke.
Forth.
So they were definitely yours.
Well, the sex toy things were, but the Latin Cupid obviously wasn't, because I was dating someone at the time, and she's not Latino. And they were like, oh, well, thanks for letting us know. These are not your charges. Forget about it. Don't worry about it. And to me, that's kind of like, if you think about that, that's kind of shocking. Like, oh, so someone just ran up like hundreds of dollars on my thing, and I just don't have to worry about it. They don't care whether I gave out my credit card to, random Latino homeless people, or like they didn't do any investigation about how I may have contributed to this accident. In fact, they don't know for sure that I didn't charge to latincupid.com. They just take my word for it. How is that possible? It's possible because they're charging the vendors that we buy stuff from out the ass on these credit card charges, right? This is something that we're working towards with Bitcoin, is trying to eliminate these middlemen who have a completely retarded system when it comes to security. Oh, I want to buy something, so I'm going to give you the lock and key for a big pile of money with a $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 credit line, and that's how I'm going to buy a dozen eggs today, is I'm going to hand that over to someone. That is a completely insane way of validating a transaction, but it works for them because they are just making so much money hand over fist on these transaction fees that they can just, when the future, they rely on the fact that it's kind of hard, a little bit hard. You have to put some effort into it to steal millions of credit cards at a time, and that there's not too many douchebags out there that are skimming credit cards off of when they're working their waitressing job or whatever, and that's it. And then they just make a lot of money, and they just write it off as an expense every single year, and they don't really work that hard to improve their security because they're just making that much money. Like, it would have to, the money that they would invest into to securing the network or whatever, it would just, because this design is so completely broken, there's no way that they could spend enough money to make that up. That's comparing to the small, relatively small amount of money they lose to these fraudulent charges. I think they'll just keep doing that as long as they possibly can until they replace these middlemen with something better. They're going to keep doing it, and they're going to keep hiding it from the consumer, because we as consumers, we don't, we say, oh, it wasn't my charge. They're like, don't worry about it. And they're like, oh, well, that's nice. What we don't realize is that makes everything way more expensive for us, because that's a possibility for them to just write it off as an expense. So, I look forward to the days when this is no longer a possibility, when I actually send the value to the merchant or to the person that I'm buying from, rather than giving them a lock and key to a $10,000 credit line.
That's a great point.
I wanted to just chime in. Chime in real quick to pick up on Christoph's point. There's like something important there with being able to control your own information, and a system that allows you to do that, and relying on these people to just make stuff up. It's proof that it's made up. This maybe could be a talking point where these fraud protection strategies and policies that are in place, on the legal level and on the corporate level, are really just proof that this whole system's made up. You could never do this with Bitcoin. There'd be no way to do that. In fact, you wouldn't need to for a lot of reasons, but even in some cases where there's might be derivative action going on, you wouldn't be able to do this if there because you could not replace. You couldn't just say, oh yeah, that money's just gone, and who cares? Yeah, it's just
the credit companies also have these made-up compliance things where you have to get compliant in order to process these credit card transactions. And it's basically, I've worked in this space for years, and it's a complete crapshoot. What you do as an auditor is you come in, you look around, you're like, oh my God, what are you people doing? And they're like, don't worry, just write it down. We'll put it in a report, and that's all we really need to do is we check off the box that says we had someone look at our systems and be completely horrified. That's about what they have to do in order to remain a processor of these credit card systems. So the idea that these people are doing something to secure their systems, or they have some kind of incentive structure in order to do that, is completely farcical. It's just they bring in the auditors. A lot of time it's like automatic code scanning, automatic scanning of your websites, not even weeding out the false positive information. It's just going through the motions, really, when it comes to actually securing customer data.
Are you talking about the payment card industry data security standard? Yeah. Yep. It's been fun for me too.
And Christoph makes a great point, because most consumers aren't merchants, so we don't know that these fees are being charged per transactions. We don't know about chargebacks and having to pay for merchandise that was stolen. And without this, they would have a complete monopoly on payment methods, and then the merchant has to partner with them, so they have to pay these fees that we don't even know about. So it's all happening in private. Blake Anderson, your thoughts?
Well, this goes back to when I first started working with Bitcoin. When I first heard about Bitcoin, I was working for the financial institutions, and when I saw it, I was like, okay, we have all this stuff that I'm doing right now for the financial institution that involves risk management, mitigation, and all those different things. And a lot of the risk management and mitigation that I had to deal with was because we were a giant brick and mortar institution, 400,000 employees. All of the overhead was trying to take our math-based security and apply it in such a way that it really did compartmentalize all the stuff that we needed to be sensitive, and then people wouldn't go with their laptops and log in from home and then have vectors of attack and all that kind of stuff. And when I got the Bitcoin white paper, I realized that the security was so much better managed and more tight and more kind of serviceable and there and real than this giant blah of completely unmanageable risk that was managed pretty well, but like Will was saying, a lot of the risk management strategies that we have today have become really bad, like group bandwagon risk management strategy, or we're going to have a good risk management strategy relative to credit cards because we're going to have really, really, really good punitive action. We're going to come and punish you really hardcore with a felony if you come take advantage of this really insecure system and are a criminal with it. So we have these really, really bad systems of ineffective risk management, wherein if people are desperate enough, that's not an effective system of risk management. If you're desperate, you can go get a credit card and then use fraud to get food in your stomach and feed your family. This is not these are not good systems, because people know that they can fall back on that, and then all kinds of behavior gets all blown out of proportion, out of control. So I think that it's good when these legacy systems are shown for what they are. I think that we need to stop being so lazy and trying to risk manage using soft sciences like psychology and stuff like that.
Exit question. CNN reports that more than half of American adults have been hacked this year. What are a few good security tips? Will Pengman.
I'll just highlight what I said earlier and what I've said in other recent outlets. Enable two-factor authentication. It's called different things on different services, so search it. Search how to turn on two-factor authentication with Google or with Facebook or anything that you want to secure. Google it, find out what they call it, and figure out how to turn it on. And especially do that with your email address, and especially do that with whatever email address you've associated with any Bitcoin wallets. And then obviously also turn on all those encryption settings, two-factor, spend password, all of that stuff for your Bitcoin wallets.
Christoph Atlas.
I think probably the best advice is to just smash all your computers and go live out in the woods, because at that point you don't have to worry about securing any of your digital equipment.
Get off the grid.
Yeah, off the grid, right? Yeah, I don't know. As far as like the credit card type stuff goes, you can get these free credit reports and keep an eye on that every once in a while if you're concerned about identity theft. It's kind of a hassle. We shouldn't have to do that in the future. We won't be bothering to do this stuff because we'll have much more mediated access control over our information that we'll give out to individual parties rather than just putting it out there for the world to see and hoping that it's secured by the good guys. But yeah, I think the credit card, the credit report kind of stuff is good for identity theft. And as far as Bitcoin goes, I would really, really urge people. Really, like I just want to like grab people and shake them sometimes when it comes to their Bitcoin security. If you have savings, they belong in cold storage. Even with two-factor authentication, two-factor authentication is a way of you securing your hot wallet. You always treat your hot wallet like it's the wallet that you carry around with you. So unless you're like Exhibit and you would walk around with $2 million in cash in your wallet, or if you're gonna go to the strip club and make it rain, you treat it like this smaller amount of funds, and that's what's appropriate to keep in these online wallets. Otherwise, you put it in cold storage. And I think that combining cold storage with these kind of M of N multi-sig things are quite good. I think they're becoming more and more accessible to people, and people should really look into finding out whether they can accomplish this multi-signature approach, so that you can give out a few copies to your friends and your lawyer and so forth, and then you're safer from any one single point of failure.
$2 million in rain. That would be a major flood or a tsunami. Blake Anderson.
You always have to like just completely derail my train of thought right before you like go. What are we talking about? Where are we? What's my name?
Security tips. Write your passwords down. Use a password.
Oh, now I remember what we were talking about. I was going to talk about like the emperor and his no clothes, and basically like we used to be naked and then we had clothes, and now like passwords are the new clothes and stuff. Like if you're out there on the internet naked, you might be like raped or whatever. You need to like put on some clothes, and clothes are not really passwords anymore. Like passwords are, you have like maybe like some Raggedy Ann and Andy cut out like paper mache stuff like stapled on your body, and you can like move around, but passwords aren't good enough. Two-factor is some actual clothing so you can go out and be secure in your person and not be raped and be comfortable and warm, and like that's how elemental this new stuff is. It sounds like we're being all fancy and trying to tell people, oh, you gotta come in with this new two-factor authentication and stuff, and we're not trying to be fancy. Like this is like really like there's not a whole lot of forgiveness if you come out and have a lot of your value exposed and you're naked on the internet. You really need to use two-factor authentication, and I hate to harp on the exact same stuff that was already said, but I can try to give you guys like tips on how to best try to manage your privacy and your passwords without 2FA, but I think it would be a waste of time. Just go right for the best solution. It doesn't take that long.
And remember that previously you weren't a target because you didn't have anything of value. Your computer had no value, your email had no value. But when you get into Bitcoin, that changes. Now your computer has value. It accesses your Bitcoin accounts. Your email has value. It controls all of your Bitcoin accounts. It can reset the passwords. You might not even know this, but if someone gets into your email, they can't just send funny messages. They can reset the passwords to most of your other accounts, which could just not result in just embarrassment anymore. It'll result in them taking your money.
So your email is an anchor account, so think of it as your true anchor account that has access to all kinds of other stuff at a very high level. Your email account is very valuable in this day and age, and that might change, but for right now, that's where we're at.
And that your Bitcoin account can also expose how much funds are in your account. So if you go around spending Bitcoin from a large value Bitcoin account, you're telling everyone that you have a large value. And what the hackers are looking for are those large value accounts they can come back to and hack into, because when they take your Bitcoins, they take all of them. They never leave you any. And it's like you left them on a counter somewhere, and suddenly they were on the counter 1 minute, and the next minute they're off the counter, and they're gone. So be ready. Moving on to issue 4, choose your own topic. eBay's payment unit, which processes payments for Uber, the car-sharing company, and airBNB, the extra room in your house sharing company, is considering accepting Bitcoin. Meanwhile, Coinapult and the Bitcoin beauties are going to drop Bitcoin, SMS wallets, and a party on a Caribbean island, and you could be there if you donate Bitcoin. Or you could just buy a ticket and go. LetTheBitDrop.com. And finally, the World Crypto Network had its second live town hall meeting, and you can watch it even now because we recorded it. Things are truly getting decentralized as the World Crypto Network grows up from just a few people sharing a YouTube channel to the future of decentralized user-creative media and a force for spreading the blockchain of goodness in the world. But it's your choice, so what would you choose? Christoph Atlas.
I think just accidentally muted myself. I think that the Caribbean island thing sounds pretty interesting. Curious which island it is. I was particularly curious to see that the Coinapult people felt that this particular government was on board with, helping to disseminate the coins and educate people about Bitcoin and so forth. I really am curious. Are there going to be these little pockets of state around the world that go along with Bitcoin for a while, and how long does that last, and what does their relationship look like with the rest of the states? Because for the most part, they're going to be quite uneasy with Bitcoin. They're not going to be embracing it with open arms. It's going to look more like the state of New York looks like right now. So I'm very curious to see how long this little Bitcoin party can last wherever it starts up.
Blake Anderson.
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about the town hall bullshit and how you assholes held it without me. And, I'm never coming back. I'm never going to be on this show again. So hope you guys had your fun, because I'm done.
Time zones can be difficult there. Oh. Come on, Will. Keep it going. What you got?
Yeah, guys. All right. I'll talk about. I knew Blake was coming back, so I wanted to give him the last word. I thought he'd be back quicker, but
Drop the mic. Gone.
No, that was my dramatic, funny bit.
Okay, sure. I'll take it from here. Yeah, I'm glad you guys left me the eBay payments one. I'm really, really excited for the inevitable announcements that Uber, Lyft, airBNB, and other sharing or gig economy type sites and companies are accepting Bitcoin. I'm really, really looking at a lot of these giant sharing and gig economy companies to lead the way for so many people who will be disintermediated or lose their jobs because they get automated as Bitcoin absorbs that part of their industry. but they can then go and become micro entrepreneurs seamlessly and easily and have actually flexibility in their life, their own free time, choose when they work, make more than enough. I mean, if you drive for Uber right now, which you can easily get hired at Uber if you have a decent driving record, insurance, and a decent vehicle that you keep clean, that's it. They'll send you an iPhone and off you go, and you can make $20 to $30 an hour doing that. You just have to do it for 40 hours a week. But most people are used to working much more than 40 hours a week. So, and it's not flexible. So this is what I'm really looking forward to, so that when this is powered by Bitcoin, it can gain ubiquity much quicker, and more folks will probably abandon their dying industries for micro-entrepreneurship. This is going to happen. I can't wait. I just want to figure out how I can help steamroll toward that future.
Excellent. Moving on to question and answers, but there are no question and answers. I almost think it's broken. But we'll just move on to predictions or story of the week.
It
Blake,
must be broken.
I know. Andreas was here and there's no questions. I can't understand that. But Blake, do you have a prediction or a story of the week?
A prediction or story? My prediction is that, long term, of course, Bitcoin's going to go up. The merchant adoption exploding right now is good. The cart and the horse problem before, people were like, nobody accepts it. Well, that's being overturned right now, and it's not a bubble, so that's good. So that's my prediction. I guess the story that would be fun to tell would be about Robin Williams, because we kind of opened up with him. Robin Williams was friends with Chris Reeve. Or was it Christopher Reeves or Chris Reeve, who was in the unfortunate accident horse riding and was paralyzed. He was quadriplegic, I believe. And he was friends with Robin Williams, and Robin Williams went to visit him in the hospital. And Chris was having a pretty hard time, obviously. And Robin Williams came in pretending to be a Russian doctor and being really loud and flamboyant. And he just repeatedly kept declaring that he was going to fix Chris's quadriplegia with a colonoscopy over and over and over, and it was so inappropriate that everybody was laughing, and Chris thought that everything could possibly be okay after that, and I don't think that anybody is gonna forget Robin for a long time. So,
beautiful story. Will Pangman.
Yeah, story of the week. I think. I was going to talk about the bit drop, actually, because I think that's really cool, but we kind of covered that. So I'll just opt for a prediction, and I'm sorry to cop out, guys, but I predict that my earlier price prediction will be wrong.
Mine will still be right. Christoph.
Yeah, so my story of the week, I've been tracking the progress on Dark Wallet, and they're doing good work, making regular commits and all that stuff, and working steadily towards their final release, which I think is, quite important project, especially with the advent of all this bit license nonsense. I think that in many ways, Dark Wallet is the community response to bit license. And the only thing is that they do need a little bit of help completing their funding for the rest of the projects. They need to get fully funded so that they can pay off their programmers and so forth. They've even had some programmers who have been, kind of working on credit for them for a little while now. And if you look at their budget, it's pretty funny. They really break it down into quite a bit of detail. Let's see, that's like prices for fonts, developers, food. $300 for herbs per month. I don't know what herbs means to them. I'm a little bit suspicious of that cost, but I'll let it fly. Rice and pasta, tomato tins, pulses and sausages. This must be some kind of crazy European stuff. But yeah, so they really broke it down for exactly what they need and what they're going to be spending their money on for the remainder of the project. I think they're looking to put out kind of a final release candidate, ready for go time towards the end of the year. And so if you have any bits kicking around, in your wallet that you'd like to send their way, I know that they would be very appreciative of that, and I think this is like a really worthy cause to donate to. I'm not always a big fan of charity. I like to give money to causes that can really directly contribute back to me and enrich my life, and I consider Dark Wallet to be one of those types of causes where my life is going to be better as a result, and my Bitcoins are going to be worth more when Dark Wallet finally comes out and is stable and ready to go. So, do what you can to help those guys out.
Very cool. And finally, Camp Bitcoin is no more. Now it's called Camp Dogecoin. And Camp Dogecoin is going to be going off at Burning Man 2014, just a couple of weeks from now, at Tom and Gary's Decentralized Dance Party, which is also a very cool project that I read about on Indiegogo. They've been traveling the world setting up dance parties completely funded by the internet. Very cool stuff. But we're out of time. Until next week, bye-bye.
Peace.
He'll never stop. He'll never stop.